Right, so I wanted to make a video updating everyone. Getting right into it, I mean, just throw out the caveat for starters. These are the numbers from the last 2 days, so they're basically double numbers because they didn't publish numbers on Canada Day, so we got the numbers from the second are also the numbers combined with the numbers on from Canada Day. So the new cases, 94 new cases again, which is a pretty good sign. I mean, that's not great numbers, but it's still not very bad. I mean, we had a day what up in the 60s, so it's not a whole lot to be worried about. We're looking at less than 50 from the average. The active cases are steady at 542. Um, in the hospital, 44. So again, the hospitalization numbers are they're up a little bit from last week, but they're still, I mean, they're in the 40s. I mean, that's not a whole lot to be worried about. When we have over 1 million people in the Edmonton metro area and 7 people in the hospital. I mean, Calgary, I think, is over 1 million people in the metro area too. Sorry, not seven, 17, and then 23 in Calgary. So it's not anything to be worried about. I mean, we did have one new death yesterday, which isn't a good sign, but that's the first death in about a week. Um, I mean, there was 3 people that died in a car accident last night in Edmonton. So that when we're having more people die in car accidents than we are from this virus, I think it's safe to say that we don't need to be overly worried about this. I mean, we still need to be precautious, but people treating this like it's the plague, that I mean, there literally is a lot of people doing that. Um, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I know I've been saying this for like over a month now, but I mean, always have new viewers, and there's a lot of people that just don't seem to understand it. So that's kind of why I pointed out. So the Canadian numbers really aren't anything that needs to be we need to be worried about. I mean, the numbers in every province are down or at the very least flat. Alberta, it seems to tick up one day, tick down the next day, and stay relatively steady. So until the numbers have a clear uptick for at least a few days, I wouldn't be worried. And let's like I mentioned too, at no point will I support a lockdown again. I don't care how bad this gets, because the government's they've been wrong about everything. They've been lying to us pretty much this whole time. I think I even seen the other day that Fauci basically came out and said that the reason that they told people not to wear masks is because that the government didn't have a lot of stock, and they didn't want people to go out and buy it. They wanted to stock up themselves. So to me, it doesn't make any sense. If I was in the government, I'd just be honest with people. I'd be like, hey, we're not stocked up enough as much as we want to be. Let us stock up, and then go hog wild after that if you really want. And I think people would probably appreciate that. And here's the thing too, is that the only reason that you would do that as a government is that you don't trust the people. You think the average person is stupid, because if you thought the average person was smart, you would just be honest with them, right? So it really said, and they did the same thing in Canada too. Um, it wasn't exclusively a thing in the states. So it just goes to show a lot about what the government thinks of the average person. But the big news over the last week or so has been the numbers out of the states, in that the active, or the daily new cases has gone up by quite a bit. Um, I don't think it's as much to do with the protests as what people think. I mean, the protests started like at the start of June, which means they should have seen an uptick like second week of June, at by the 15th or so at the absolute latest. But again, the uptick doesn't start till um, like the third week of June. So again, it isn't a 3 week incubation period. The maximum is 14 days, and the average is like 5 days. So it doesn't make any sense. I think it's just simply the government's ramping up testing. The protest definitely had some to do with it, maybe a 20% difference. So of the you know 10,000 more cases they're discovering on a daily basis than normal, probably 2 or 3 thousand of them are due to the protests, but most of them are just flat out the government's testing more people, which means they're going to get more positive tests. And you see, they had the first day yesterday. I don't know if it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. Over 50,000 cases, but you look at the death chart here, it's still very steady. I mean, you look at the death chart, it's still trending down. The daily new deaths have not ticked up, and if I mean just for sake of argument, if the deaths, numbers had ticked up at the same rate as the case count, at least compared to the numbers out of April, which is when they were seeing the most amount of cases prior to this, um, the daily new deaths would be like 4 or 5 thousand, and they're at 600 or so. So if anything, it's actually a good thing, because a lot less people are dying, and a lot less people or sorry, the death rate is continuing to tick down. So if any, I mean, you don't want more people to get cases in a perfect world, but the last thing you want is people dying. I mean, not on the list of things you want the least. People dying is number one. So there's not a whole lot to be worried about. I don't know why people are panicking so much. I mean, they're going to keep panicking from now until eternity, but nonetheless, that's the numbers out of the states. So this is a study that the Washington Examiner links to, and it's titled Stanford Doctor Virus Fatality Rate for People Under 45 Almost 0%. And again, this is something I've been saying for 2 months now, that the death rate for young people is next to nothing. There's nothing to be worried about. There's a study out of Switzerland that shows that I literally made a video about, that shows that the death rate for people under the age of 50 is less than the flu. And we don't get all hot and bothered when there's a flu season, even the average flu season, let alone a bad flu season. So people that are all worried, again, you're just being paranoid. Again, they're probably not people watching this video, but you people watching this video probably know people like this, and that again, they're just being paranoid. The only way that being paranoid makes sense is if the death rate is where we originally thought it was, is if it spreads as much as we originally thought it was, if it sits on surfaces for as much as we originally thought it was, and all those things have been scaled back a ton. I mean, the death rate's way lower. Um, it doesn't spread nearly as easy as we thought, especially in asymptomatic people. It doesn't sit on surfaces nearly as long as we thought. So again, there's not a whole lot to be worried about here. The reason why, like I said, that there's such an uptick in cases is that we're testing a lot more people, and they're largely asymptomatic people. I put that in a video the other day about in Minnesota, the only age bracket of people that has had a big uptick, or even an uptick in the percentage of people testing positive, is people in their 20s. So again, we don't have anything to worry about. Like, I really don't understand people's paranoia. And again, this is just another study that goes to show that, again, there's no reason for all this paranoia that's going around right now. We should be pretty much completely reopened. There's no reason to force people to wear masks. I've talked about that before, but the minute that people are okay with being forced to wear masks, they will push for something else, because masks don't make that much of a difference. Masks only help if you're sick. And people say, oh, what if you're asymptomatic? Well, if you're asymptomatic, it's very hard to spread the virus. So that's also not an argument. I mean, the only way it makes sense, really, I mean, if you're sick and you're asymptomatic, you probably should know. But the problem is that if you're asymptomatic, you don't know usually. Um, but the only people that should be wearing masks, I mean, this is the thing too, is that they should be staying home. But if you're sick, you should be wearing a mask. And that, I mean, even for the cold, even for the flu, even any sickness that you have, yeah, you should wear a mask out in public. Um, but you shouldn't be forced to. And we already know that they're not this end all be all, single-handedly end the virus thing. If they were, then why in the world didn't we do that off the start? Again, the people that are wanting to force people to wear masks are the same people that 3 months ago were fully on board. Tam coming out and saying, "Oh, the masks don't work. They don't work. Borders don't work." And they're the same people that if you're Alberta and you're in BC, they'll smash up your car. I mean, there's been multiple cases of this. If you're a lot of you, I've even seen cases of Americans living in Canada that haven't switched their plates over, that have had their cars smashed up. There are people that are literally moving. They've had their stuff smashed up, or someone from Alberta helping someone from BC move to Alberta. I've seen a case of them getting their vehicle smashed up again. So these are the same people that are doing that, but yet they're the same people 3 months ago that would have told you, oh no, wearing a mask doesn't work. They just blindly believe what the government tells them, no matter what. And they're so stupid and ignorant that they're not even smart enough. Their attention span is so short that they don't even realize that they're literally going in the exact opposite direction of a belief they held 3 months ago. Again, so the people are just stupid. Um, so Gavin Newsom, who's the governor of California, has shut down businesses and doesn't want people to do anything for the Fourth of July and all this garbage. But he keeps his own businesses open. Again, it's just more hypocrisy of the left. I've been pointing these cases out ad nauseum, but I'm going to keep pointing it out because again. I like to say how hypocritical these people are, and I like to provide evidence of that. So again, this is just another example of blatant hypocrisy that again I'm allowed to have my it's rules for thee but not for me. That's basically um, fundamental to leftism. It's rules for me but not for thee, or sorry, rules for thee but not for me. um, and that's basically the entire leftist worldview, wrapped up in a nutshell. So um, this is from the Washington Examiner. Now again, this is something that happened about a week ago, but Trump tweeted out all the most violent cities in the states are Democratic run, and Washington Post tried to fact check him on that, and they said, "Oh, wrong." But the problem is that 19 of the 20 most violent are Democratic run, and the one that isn't is an independent. So again, he's 95% right, and I'm not sure who exactly this independent is, but they're probably more um, Democratic. I mean, Springfield, Missouri. I'm not sure exactly. That's kind of a Rust Belt area, so it's probably more likely to be Republican. But again, I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, even if he's right about 19 of the 20, like you're honestly going to fact check someone about this, it just goes to show just how petty the mainstream media is. That Trump tweets out that, oh, the most dangerous cities are Democratic run, and the reality is that 19 of the most 20 most violent or Democratic run, and they think that's a gotcha moment. Like again, these people are so petty, it's not even funny. This is from Peter A. Smith. So about a week ago, there was a stabbing where I think like three people died in Glasgow, and I mean, as anyone with half a brain, thought, it was a refugee, a 28-year-old from Sudan. I'm not going to try and pronounce that name because it's kind of hard. But anyway, this is just the wonders of diversity, and then I point out at nauseum that diversity comes with a massive downside. I mean, I wouldn't say even a massive downside. I would just say that it flat out doesn't work, and that pretty much all the studies show that. I mean, there's been studies going back a long time on that diversity doesn't work, and nobody actually believes in diversity either. The left will claim they do, but they don't, because if they actually did, they would look at an area where conservatives are underrepresented, say, college professors or public school teachers, and be like, hey, we need more diversity here. College professors are like 95% people on the left. We need more diversity. But they never do that. They never look at an area where men are very underrepresented, say public school teachers, and be like, hey, we need more men as public school teachers. They never do that. And if they actually believed in diversity, they would be doing that. So again, they only believe in diversity when it benefits themselves. And the reason that they love mass immigration is that immigrants from the third world overwhelmingly vote for the left. We're talking, 75% of the time vote for the left, which is why they want diversity. I mean, and the reason too is that they can't win, elections the old fashioned way by doing the right thing and actually winning by convincing the general public. So what they do is they basically just cheat. Basically, that's what mass immigration is. And again, speaking of mass immigration, this is a story out of the Globe and Mail, and it's titled "How a Liberian Warlord Lived Freely in Canada Until He Was Gunned Down." Now, I'm not going to go into the article. You can go check it out if you want, but um, how in the world did a Liberian warlord get into Canada? Like seriously, like I mean, it's just more proof that our immigration is so lax it's not even funny, and that basically we'll let anyone in. I mean, we have the Liberal Party, and I'm assuming the NDP as well, who supports bringing ISIS fighters back to Canada. Again, you can go fight for one of the most radical groups that exist in the world today. That is incredibly sexist. It is incredibly patriarchal, incredibly racist. But that's perfectly fine. And the reason why it's perfectly fine is they vote for the left. And not only that, too, is that when you're on the left, um, you cannot have one policy position that could even come close to being perceived as being racist towards black and brown people. And again, I hate to put it so bluntly, but it's just a flat out truth. And then I wish we didn't have to talk about that, but we do, because um, if literal warlords are living in Canada, I mean, I think we've gone too far, and I think we're past the point of staying silent being a good thing. So anyway, that's the video for today. If you'd like to, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. Again, I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things, check me out on Twitter, check me out on Parler, and check me out on BitChute. It's very important that you support people that are out there speaking the truth. So make sure you follow me on all those platforms.